Good evening. I'd like to introduce our team today, Bill Coons, Patrick Tarpe, and myself, Mohini Das. We are going to be talking about the Nokia India recall. But before we discuss the defective battery recall, I'd like to give a little background about the company. Nokia was founded on the banks of the river Nokia Vätern by Fredrik Idelstam, and it merged into a corporation with Finnish Cable Works, Rubber Works, and Nokia AB. Their roots were basically in the wood pulp industry, but they diversified into the consumer electronics sector, and soon in the 80s, 40% of their revenue came from that sector. Nokia has many firsts. It has the first car phone in 1984, the first cellular mobile in 1988, 86, and the first digital phone system in 1988. Even the first GSM local call was made from Finland in 1991. With the acquisition of Ericsson Data Division, Nokia became the world's largest IT group. It had employees in 120 countries, and it has research and development in Australia, Japan, China. It has manufacturing plants in Masoom, Korea, China, and India. It offers a wide variety of services in music, navigation, television, video, and games, so that it has truly become a global giant. It entered the market in India in 1995, and because of the government's liberal policy, it was able to open a manufacturing plant in Chennai in year 2006. It established a very effective and efficient networking system by creating customer care centers and Nokia priority developed centers. These were responsible for local and regional areas, and this was running very smoothly. The phone industry is a little different in India than here in the US. Here in the US, we are locked in with one service provider, but that's not how it is in India. There, each manufacturer is responsible for marketing his own device, even though there are many alliances. With the sales and marketing running so smoothly, logistics was a totally different story. The challenge that faced Nokia was India's diversity. It is not only diverse in topography, but all 25 states have different languages, different customs, and different taxation rules. When Nokia's quality is sophisticated and extremely refined. On a regular quality routine check, they found that some batteries manufactured at Masuchita, the battery number BL5C, was swelling while charging. And they were able to pinpoint the batch and the lot number, and an immediate recall was set in motion to the countries that would be affected. But getting replacements so fast is a problem. Chennai did have some batteries already going out to its regular customers, which they diverted to Delhi. But it was India's Independence Day, and there were a lot of checkpoints, and security was very high, and the batteries did not reach Delhi in time. While Nokia was working behind the scenes and trying to resolve this issue, the media got wind of it, and the likely to swell became likely to explode, creating fear and panic amongst the Indian Nokia users. A global team was set up that was in constant contact with Finland, and websites were created where the customer could go and find out if the battery was defective or not. There were advertisements on TVs, on radios, informing the customer and directing it towards where it could get the battery exchanged or how it could get returned. It could work both ways, by in person or by mail. Now, getting it to them by mail was a problem, because India is basically a word-to-mouth society, and having detailed information was not the norm. And so there was incorrect information, incorrect addresses, and people were not home to accept the deliveries. This caused major interference in the delivery schedule. After 4 months of going back and forth through this crisis, normalcy returned to Nokia operations. But India management did realize that they needed a protocol, a standardized protocol for recall, otherwise future times it would be just as bad. But all this required in-depth analysis. And for that, I hand it over to Bill.
Thank you, Mohini. So before I start this analysis, a few things that we realized. The real strength of Nokia was their flexibility. While the issues that Nokia had really stemmed from what Mohini was talking about and not having a formalized process. So please keep that in mind as we go through this. And we'll start off with what Nokia did well. Once again, they were flexible and adaptable. They were able to use resources that they currently had, and also other resources that partners and other sister companies were able to give them. One of those partnerships was with DHL. Essentially, what Nokia India allowed DHL to do was run the actual courier services and a little bit of the logistics, including the repackaging of the batteries when they're being couriered. DHL was also given the ability to sign third-party contracts for Nokia to deliver these batteries, because DHL themselves could not handle all the courier services. So this really allowed Nokia India some free time that could be spent elsewhere during the recall. While Nokia India was flexible and adaptable while using their outside resources, they were also very good at using the resources that they already had, such as their customer care centers and their Nokia priority dealers. A great example of that is how Nokia really realized that the website solution from Finland was not going to be enough for Indian culture, that the Indian people really needed that face-to-face contact in order to get this recall process moving. So Nokia ended up having a dedicated staff member at each of the customer care centers and Nokia priority dealers to handle all these recall services that are needed, and actually was there to talk and communicate with the customer. Nokia was also able to add phone and text services directly with their courier services. All this culminated to excellent communication by Nokia with its customers after the initial PR snafu. While Nokia was doing this recall, which only took 4 months, which was pretty successful, one thing that really impressed us was how environmentally conscious Nokia was. They did send back all of the batteries to be disposed of in a proper, environmentally friendly way. Some of the things that we feel that Nokia didn't do well, that we've talked about already, is really stems from Nokia India not having a formalized process for their recalls. And one of those is their PR. They did not control their story, like Mohini said, that going from batteries, having a tendency to swell to a tendency to explode. That's a big difference, and that created a big fear and created a lot of problems with Nokia and their customers. And not controlling your own story is not acceptable. We're going to talk about some solutions that we've come up with for that. But lastly, one thing that we feel that Nokia could improve upon is actually capturing full addresses and the proper information. They're very good about communicating with their customers after the initial PR snafu, but they weren't always capturing the correct information. So Patrick is now going to talk about our actual future recommendations, not only to improve this, but also what their formalized process should be in the future.
Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about some of the future recommendations. It's very important that Nokia have a formalized process. For the start of the formalized process, they're going to have to designate an officer in the region in India to coordinate the entire operation. He's also going to be the spokesperson for the media in case anything arises and there's any issues that he has to answer to. He will have authority over all the departments and locations, and also make any decisions that are not documented in the formalized process itself. Part of the action plan, if there is a recall, would be setting up distribution for the replacements, and initially DHL will be contacted, and they'll be on hand to help out with the increase in logistics until Nokia is able to take over and handle it on their own. They'll be partners until the ramp up is over. So training for all employees will be handled on a quarterly basis, unless there is a recall, and in that case the store managers will have to be training their employees or going through a recap within 24 hours of notice of the recall. Also, designated warehouse space will have to be available for receiving and repacking, and until all the parts are sent back to the supplier. Communication to the customers is very important for a recall, and Nokia is responsible to get a news release out to the media immediately. It's very important that the media does not get a hold of this before Nokia releases something, because then it can get completely blown out of proportion and it can turn into something else. Some of the outlets that they would release to are TV, print, website. There'll also be information available in stores and probably through any kind of social media networks. Before any of this goes out to the media, an 800 number will have to be available, and they'll have to be properly staffed to handle the influx of calls initially. We don't want to have the customers frustrated trying to call and call again and give up and be stuck with a malfunctioning device. In-store coordinators will be available at the stores to handle all the returns and on hand. They'll be able to handle all the returns and also coordinate the new batteries going back to the customers. Communication with the supplier is very important. They're going to have to be notified that they have a defective product, and they will be issued a car immediately. That's a corrective action. This corrective action will have to include the document damages, and it will also have to be immediately sent back to Nokia with a response regarding how fast they're going to be able to turn around new products, new batteries. Documentation is very important, and centralized data will allow Nokia to evaluate the entire situation. Progress reports will be made available when all the data is put together, and standardized forms will also be able to solve the logistics issues, because the lack of the information initially will be taken care of with the standardized forms. All the information needed will be included when those forms are filled out. At the end of this process, at the evaluation of the recall, Nokia is going to be able to identify the problems, and also after every recall there will be an evaluation of it, and it will foster a culture of continuous improvement for the next one.